We're live. Good morning. How are you? How is everybody? That's a little too sharp of an angle here. It's Thursday. What a day. Well, it's Thursday, and I'm out of sorts, but there's a show coming in 3, 2, 1. Good Thursday, October 22nd. I just wrote this down. Yeah, Thursday, October 22nd, 2020. My name's Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee. I got plenty of sleep. I slept well. I should be on fire this morning. Clearly, I'm not. I don't know why. I think I just need some time off. I really do. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I can do that now. It's an interesting idea. What were you yesterday? It was Wednesday. Wednesday, the Lemon Law people drove my car. I have no idea what happened because they don't tell me anything as part of that process. So now I just have to wait up to 30 days for them to tell me their decision. I spent a good amount of time yesterday looking at the data on my next car, and I'll be getting what I should have gotten, which was a RAV4. I'm like 90% certain it'll be a RAV4. That's what I should have bought. But I wanted something more fun, and instead I got something that was a disaster. It seems almost every day someone chimes in on one of my YouTube videos saying, I'm having the same problem. I'm having the same problem. It really should be there really should be a class action lawsuit against Mazda. This car is a disaster. And it's funny that I think part of the reason there hasn't been more outrage is that most of the people buying this car are younger, and they're so in love with the car because a lot of them it's their first new car or whatever, that they're willing to overlook a lot of these things. That's been my experience in the Facebook group. They think I'm just being a grumpy old man. Well, whatever. What else has happened? What else happened yesterday? Not a lot. It was the only thing I left the house for. Came back, did a bunch of work. I've been really productive the last few weeks. It feels really good to be this productive. Good morning, Andrew. So if there's nothing, I went for a walk, did the books, playing with a new way of budgeting personally. Thought about taking a nap and didn't. Watched a movie that had some surprising fight scenes. The Take on Netflix with Idris Elba. The movie itself was okay. Idris Elba, being a pretty solid actor, was able to work through some of the rather poor dialogue. But there were some hand-to-hand fight scenes that I did not expect. And I'm not sure how many of them he did himself. It was, it got to that kind of quick cut. You can't see his face, so I'm guessing it wasn't him. But the fight scenes themselves are pretty good. There was some interesting close-range jiu-jitsu stuff going on, and you don't see a lot of that in movies. It was a good movie. It was worth watching. I'm glad I watched it. If you haven't watched it, check it out. Some of the premise of what was going on in the movie was utterly ridiculous, and I figured out the plot. And there's a twist, and I figured it out about 10 minutes in, maybe 15. But that didn't stop it from being fun. I don't watch a lot of movies because movies require sitting down for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Some movies now, 2.5 hours. It's too long. you're watching something Scorsese made, you know, you got to give them half a day. I don't have that kind of time. So I tend to watch a lot of reruns of TV. You know, that's when I'll go back through The Ranch again or Gilmore Girls again. And you know what? Sometimes they catch flack for Gilmore Girls, but it's the most intelligent writing of any television show ever. Although a lot of people are telling me to watch The West Wing. They say that also has really, really smart writing. So that's on my list. Something I will check out at some point. Andrew's suggesting I watch MASH. Here's the issue with MASH. Growing up, I had to watch whatever my mother wanted to watch, if she wanted to watch. And there were only a handful of things that she ever wanted to watch. One of them was MASH. I have likely seen every episode of MASH multiple times. I have no desire to ever watch it again. And it's funny, that's opposed to other shows that we watched that I did enjoy, like Roseanne or The Cosby Show, Jeopardy. I think those were the main ones. Yeah. And figure skating in the Olympics. I have a personal vendetta against watching figure skating because martial arts at the time was not in the Olympics in any way. At least when I started disliking figure skating, and figure skating was, and I thought, like, this is boring. Why is this better than martial arts? Andrew is seconding. He says, okay, that I stand behind your friends that recommend West Wing. Cool. It's on my Netflix queue. I just haven't done it yet. And you know what it might be? It might be that it's political, even though it's a fictional show. I'm so tired of politics stuff right now. I really am. What have you got? 3 more weeks? Not even 2. 9. Oh my God. 9 days, 12 days, not even 2 weeks. Oh. 2 weeks until I stop seeing the most ridiculous ads of all time. And unfortunately, I don't think it'll end everyone yelling at each other on social media. I think it'll just get worse. Yay. But I live in the woods. Nobody yelling at me here. What's going on today? Coffee came out so bad. Yesterday, the coffee was a little too weak, and I probably went overboard in compensation for today. And it is really strong. I'm probably going to be bouncing. Today, I've got a couple calls. One of the projects that we've got going has kind of stagnated, and it is time to kick that up, to kick it forward a bit. And I got a call to that end, taking one of these things that we've been working on, and there's a book coming. So I'm talking with the author. Co-author? Yeah, I'll probably let him have the author credit. He's done 98% of the work. Got a call with a past guest, someone who had been on the show recently, that I want to talk about collaboration with. That could be a big thing. We'll see. I think those are the main things. I think it's just those 2 calls and then a bunch of social media, a bunch of email and other tasks like that. Maybe I'll get out of here. Maybe I'll go to Panera and work. Because this one keeps bugging me. Driving me nuts. Yeah. So, not a terribly busy day. Yesterday I was done with my day at 4. Which I know, it sounds so early to me. And then I remember, oh, you get up and you start your day with a 6:30 show. and then you're at your desk by 8. So it's an 8-hour day, and a lot of it's intense work. And I've talked about Brain FM before, Brain.fm. Seriously, if you have not checked it out, check it out. I make no money when you do. Yes, they have promo codes and whatever, but we don't do any of that. So go check it out. It is amazing. If you do any kind of work where you have to sit in front of a computer, do it. Do it. It's so worth it. It's $7 a month. If your time is worth anything, you will get a return on that investment. Should we look at questions and quotes? What do you think? She's not making eye contact. She's looking away. Oh, and I went for a walk yesterday. I walked a couple miles. Been chewing. You know what? I mentioned this on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter personally, which nobody does, but I have an Audible Audible subscription. There we go. And they recently launched a program where typically Audible is you can either buy books at a price, or you subscribe with a certain number of credits and you use those credits to buy books. And when you buy them, either of those methods, you have them forever. And I've got books that I bought years ago. And I'll go through and, I go through phases with what I listen to, whether it's audiobooks or podcasts or music, and rotate around. Like right now I'm not listening to as many podcasts. I'm listening to audiobooks. And so I'll subscribe and unsubscribe. But right now, in the last, I think, just month or so, Audible changed things so that when you're subscribed, not only do you get credit so you can buy books to have, regardless of whether or not you're subscribed, you can have, there are books you can just download and listen to so long as you are subscribed. They're calling them included. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't have to use a credit. Let's see what's here. And they recommended a book to me because most of what I have been listening to is post-apocalyptic fiction because it's fun. And they recommended this book that had like a whole bunch of 5-star reviews, so I started listening to it. And the reader sounded a little familiar. Oh, and they get to the credits, such and such by so-and-so, read by Bronson Pinchot. And I went, seriously? Bronson Pinchot played Balky on Perfect Strangers, which was a sitcom back in the 80s. And he played an utterly ridiculous character. Probably the closest thing to Balky in the way he was presented would have been like Robin Williams as Mork in Mork and Mindy. And I'm on like my 3rd book that he's reading. He does a great job. And so after that, I went on Twitter and I was like, is Bronson right? And it says Balky Bartokomous. Yeah, it was a great character. I mean, it was a really endearing show. I don't think it won any awards because it wasn't, that kind of show, but it was a lot of fun. So I go on Twitter and I find Bronson Pinchot, and I think my tweet was something like, who would have thought that what I really needed in life was Bronson Pinchot reading post-apocalyptic fiction on Audible. And he responded and retweeted it, and then a bunch of his followers, he only has 5,000 followers, his followers were like, what? You read books? Where do I find these? And so it was just fun watching the conversation. And now when I log on to Twitter, there are still, ripples of notifications coming through. And this was days ago. That's a good time. Sure that there is not much syndication money for Perfect Strangers, but he's carved out a life reading post-apocalyptic fiction. How cool is that? No, he doesn't read it in the ridiculous voice that he did for Balky. Closing. That could have been a commercial too, but we don't have an Audible thing. Unlike every other show on Earth. Who doesn't have an Audible subscription that wants one now? I mean, at this point, what's the purpose? Instead of doing commercials, it's all a commercial for whistlekick. All right. let's get into this stuff. The quotes, the questions, the comments, the things that you all contribute in the comments field after the show's closed, and I read them now. Look how bright that is on my face. Andrew's watching. I know he understands the glare. Andrew, if we start doing video stuff, for those of you who don't know, Andrew has been co-hosting some of the Martial Arts Radio Thursday episodes with me, which has been a lot of fun because I'm sharing some of the work, and we get more of a back and forth, which I like. And there's cat hair in my beard, like everywhere. I woke up and there were clumps on it. I don't know how she did that, but they were there. It looked like I had alopecia. Sort of. No, not really. It was just weird looking. Andrew, if you and I start doing video shows, we'll have to get like wigs. I definitely did sleep well last night because I'm not usually this silly in the morning. All right, here we go. More quotes from KarateByJesse.com. Andrew says he'll wear a hat. We should open karate to the public and receive criticism, opinions, and studies from other prominent fighting artists. Chojun Miyagi, the founder of Goju-ryu. All martial arts should be open to criticism and opinions from everyone. If what you care about most is having the most effective fighting style, how do you do that? You engage with people who fight in different ways. That's it. The best martial art would be one where it is effective on the street and in every style of competition. Point sparring, kickboxing, straight up boxing. Doesn't mean that it's the best at all of those, because obviously boxing is the best at boxing. But the best overall martial art would mean that you had a way to handle every sort of opponent, right? But a lot of people who get really wrapped around, this is one of my favorite sayings of late, right? Wrapped around the axle on the effectiveness of martial arts aren't willing to do that. They'll say, well, you know, it's only about street fighting. Okay. Fine. You might have a boxer come in on a street fight. You might have a kickboxer. You might have someone who's a wrestler. You still have to account for those things. Maybe there aren't rules, but the best martial art imaginable would accommodate all of those conditions. But you get some of those folks who will say, but it's got to be historic. Well, you can't have both. You can't have an evolving martial art that is also a purely historic martial art. You can have a martial art that pays homage. If you were to try to codify the things that I know, believe, and train, you would see that there's an historical component, forms, basics, and a more modernized, freeform aspect, sparring, self-defense. The two can coexist. My freeform, my sparring, my self-defense is still rooted in tradition, but I'm not preparing to fight people on horseback. I'm not preparing to fight people walking around with swords. I am preparing to, how would I handle a knife or a gun? Right? These are the things you gotta think about. This is why I like having, and the phrase, a white belt mentality. Everything that I do, might do, is up for discussion in an intelligent, constructive way. Not a belittling way, not a critical's fine, not a disrespectful way. But yeah. People will ask me, here's one of the questions that I get. How do you get so much done? How is whistlekick involved in so many things? And the root of that is a variety of knowledge in different aspects of business and life. Where did that come from? A willingness to be a white belt in everything. The more you're willing to learn openly, genuinely, the better off you'll be. Nothing is more harmful to the world than a martial art that is not effective in actual self-defense. Choki Motobu, founder of Motobu-ryu Kempo and notorious Okinawan Karate street fighter. I disagree completely. Nothing is more harmful to the world than a martial art that is not effective in actual self-defense. That's the most harmful thing. Well, I think we can all agree it's not the most harmful thing. But let's say it is a substantially harmful thing. This is an argument that I hear people make about traditional martial arts. Well, if what you're training wouldn't work on the street, then you're wasting your time, and I've actually heard people say that it is better that someone not train at all than train in a martial art that wouldn't prepare them adequately. Okay? So if someone has no self-defense training, they're starting at zero, and they go into a school that does a poor job preparing them, let's say out of a 0 to 100, 0 to 10, 1 to 10, make it easy. They're starting off there to 1, right? Because they don't know anything. They go into a school. Are they going to get worse? I've heard some people argue, well, it gives them a false sense of confidence. How do violent encounters occur? People looking for opportunities to find a victim. If you are confident, you are less likely to be a victim. That is psychologically, statistically valid. So even if your self-defense skills are terrible, if you think that they're worthwhile, you are less likely to be a victim. Remember, the only way you win a fight is to not get into one. Who wants to get in fights? Crazy people. If you want to get in a fight, if that is a goal of yours, you're probably not watching this show. You probably don't think anything of me. So you're not watching. So I don't care. Right? People who want to get into fights are focused on the wrong things. So even a bad martial arts curriculum that gives you some confidence is beneficial to you in a self-defense way. We all train for different reasons. Some of us train for friendship. Some of us train for fitness. Some of us train for self-defense. Most of us train for a variety of reasons. Why do I train? Because at this point, after all the years that I've been training, I don't know what my life would look like without it. I would be lost. I feel lost this year, barely training. Kicking things around the house and not seeing my tournament friends and just that aspect of who I am, it's missing right now. It sucks. So no, plenty of things are more harmful to the world than a martial art that is not effective in actual self-defense. And you know what? Every martial art is effective in actual self-defense if it is taught and applied properly. Except maybe yellow bamboo. But I don't really consider that a martial art. My old ways of karate was not readily accepted by everyone. They thought it was too outdated and too crude. I think it was just too hard, or maybe my training methods were too severe. Whatever it was the way I learned and the way I taught. It was only later, when the Americans came to learn, that I changed my ways. Hohan Soken, founder of Matsumura Seito Shorin-ryu Karate. There's a big difference in the way that martial arts can be taught. You can teach a very rigid, rugged, militaristic discipline-based, I think the closest comparison, based on my understanding, because I've not trained in that way, is what I hear spoken of with boot camp, you know, Army Corps, Marine Corps boot camp. The way people describe that. And what happens? Those people come out regimented. I mean, they're in good shape, and they're disciplined and respectful of authority, and they make, you know, they become great soldiers. You can train martial arts in that way. But you can also not train martial arts in that way. I wasn't trained in that way. Am I a great soldier? No. Am I a great street fighter? No. I don't want to be. I didn't want to be. My mother, my instructors didn't want me to be. The way you teach is going to affect the way your students turn out. Now, were Hohan Soken's students' forms the best? Probably not. If you watch video of forms, kata, pumse, toll, patterns, whatever you want to call them, from early times of when we've had video, they were terrible by today's standards. We have advanced that so far. The presentation, the performance of forms is light years ahead of what it was. Maybe not for everyone, but I would say on average. Now, what about the ability to mix it up on the street? It's probably gone down because there's less chance of that now, because there are fewer people training for that reason now. That's okay. Martial arts evolves over time, as it should, and any good teacher adjusts to the students. If your goal as any kind of instructor is to teach a thing, and you have people who want to learn that thing, why would you not alter your methods to best teach that thing to those people? Now, if you see martial arts, if Hohan Soken saw his job as a martial arts instructor was to teach fighting, that made sense. But if he was here in 2020, hopefully he would see that his job wasn't so much to teach fighting. It's to teach martial arts, to teach betterment, personal growth, whatever you want to call it. You've got to teach that differently. What's the responsibility of a martial arts instructor? To impart martial arts knowledge. It's a two-way relationship. The student can't be the only responsible party. It has to be an exchange. If you don't teach well and they don't learn well, nothing is taught. Daniel asked a good philosophical question. At what point is it no longer traditional? Sort of like if you replace every board in a ship, is it the same ship anymore? That's a great question. And I think it's debatable. I think that the ship example is a little bit easier in that, think of it from like a spirit, an essence. The boat has the same essence. It's essentially, I'm assuming you're replacing the boards over time, it's essentially the same boat. The traditional martial arts, as they evolve slowly, still have tradition. Maybe not the original tradition, but there are still things. It has history. If you take a traditional food dish, are you suggesting that the way it is prepared today is exactly the same as when it was first prepared? No, it's changed over time. Somebody screwed stuff up along the way. One of the words that I struggle the most with as we discuss martial arts is tradition, traditional martial arts, because that word can mean very different things to people. I prefer to look at traditional martial arts and say, I know it when I see it. I know what a traditional art is. We all know what a traditional art is if we've been training for more than, a week. Hey, that's a traditional art. That's not. And traditional martial arts can be trained in a traditional way or a more modern way. More modern martial arts can be trained in a traditional way. We got one more. Round out the day. It is necessary to drink alcohol and pursue other fun human activities. The art, karate, of someone who is too serious has no flavor. Choki Motobu. Well, I don't think the alcohol part is necessary, but the pursue other fun human activities. Martial arts at its peak is personal expression. If all you do is martial arts, where is your personality coming from? It's the other things that we have in life that we bring back into martial arts or our personal relationships that give them substance and value. If the only people you hang out with are martial artists and all you do and talk about is martial arts, it starts to get a little boring. Don't be afraid to have hobbies. Most of us do. I don't. Maybe plants, as I look around the jungle that is this room. All right. I appreciate everybody watching. Great questions. Good discussion in the chat today. That makes it a lot more fun for me, so thank you. If you have questions or comments or other things that you want me to respond to, drop them in the comment section once the show closes. And I'll talk about them tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Yay! And if you want to support the work that we do, remember, whistlekick.com, use the code FIRSTCUP15, or the Patreon. I've got a podcast episode that I'm preparing to put up exclusively on Patreon for those at the $5 and up tier. Thanks for coming by. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Peace.